Dear viewers, welcome back to another episode of Editorial Analysis by Drishti IAS. In this program, we focus on important editorials from major newspapers such as the Hindu, the Indian Express, Live Mint, etc. for effective understanding of our students. Through this program, we primarily focus on three. First, we try to link the editorial with that of the UPSC syllabus. Secondly, we try to decode or decipher what are the key points that are mentioned in the editorial. And lastly, and most importantly, we try to focus on the key concepts, if any, that are mentioned in the editorial. We truly believe that you love this initiative of Drishti IAS. Please feel free to give us your valuable suggestions so that we can strive to do better each and every day. So with a lot of gratitude in our hearts to our viewers, let us commence today's session of Editorial Analysis.
Dear viewer, this video is available in Hindi as well. If you wish to watch it, please visit our Hindi YouTube channel, Drishti IAS. For your convenience, the link for this video in Hindi has been provided in the description below.
For today, we have opted for the editorial titled Need to Curb NSA Misuse. The editorial is from Financial Express, dated 12 September 2020. Now, the editorial technically talks about how some states have been quick to invoke the National Security Act in order to silence critics. Now, let us try to link this editorial with that of the UPSC syllabus. It is more important from mains perspective, where we can connect it to GS2, linking it with governance, constitution, and also probably polity. And to further narrow it down, we can connect it to government policies and interventions and the issues arising out of their design and implementation. Now, before we try to understand the key points of the editorial, let us try to understand the context of the editorial. Now, you all would have been aware of the recent crisis where the Madhya Pradesh government had invoked the National Security Act against the accused in a cow slaughter case. Also, similarly, the Manipur government had detained a journalist under the National Security Act for comments on the Chief Minister. Now, interestingly, the district magistrate had already granted bail to the journalist, and 2 days later, the Manipur government decided to invoke the national security. Now, recently, and the most controversial issue is the Uttar Pradesh government and its invocation of the Draconian National Security Act against 139 people, out of which a majority was for cow slaughter cases. Now, with this background in mind, let us try to understand what are the key points that are mentioned in the editorial. Now, the editorial clearly states that the National Security Act is a well-intended and perhaps even a necessary evil in our country. However, such sweeping powers in the hands of the state predictably have led to misuse, which we understood from MP, the Manipur government, and also the Uttar Pradesh government. Now, the editorial states that the state governments need to act according to the spirit of the National Security Act, and it is important that both the states and the centre adopt a cautious approach on the use of NSA, and not only the NSA, even other extraordinary laws like the Public Security Act and the Unlawful Activities Act. Why? Because if these acts are misused and it is invoked against common citizens, then later on these very laws that you have created to protect the citizens will become tools to disempower the very citizens you are trying to protect, and will also contribute to a rising record of violation of civil liberties. Also, the editorial, has very boldly placed the blame, or at least part of the blame, on the judiciary as well. Why? Because sometimes the judiciary tend to become rubber stamps in such cases, rather than holding the respective states accountable. So, in the editorial, what is the solution to this? Now, the editorial states that the law also provides for 3-member advisory body. And what is the objective of this advisory body? To investigate decisions as to why did the state detain people for prolonged periods under the National Security Act. Now, the law also states that the advisory body must consist of retired or sitting High Court judges or qualified to be a judge of the High Court. So with this, we have understood what is the key point of the editorial, and now we move to understand what are the key concepts that we have to learn from the editorial. And most importantly, we are here to talk about the National Security Act. So what is the NSA? So it is simply a preventive detention law. And what is preventive detention law? Now, preventive detention involves the detainment or containment of a person to keep him or her from committing future crimes and or from escaping future prosecution. Now, this is also a very common act that is used not exactly under the form of NSA, but preventive custody, where law enforcement can hold back charge sheeters or history sheeters. If they have grievous crimes against them, and if there's an important event or VIP visiting, the law enforcement agencies can enact preventive detention in order to keep them custody, so that they are prevented from committing any crimes. Now, under the National Security Act, the detainee may not even be informed of why he or she has been detained under the Act for almost close to 10 days. Now, what are the provisions or the key provisions in this Constitution Act? Now, Article 222 3B of the Constitution allows for preventive detention and restriction on personal liberty for reasons of state security and public order. Also, the Article 22(4) states that no law providing for preventive detention shall authorize the detention of a person for a longer period than 3 months. That is, a person can be detained for a maximum of 3 months unless the custody of the person has to be extended and it is advised further by an advisory board. Now, what are the criticisms that has been raised against the National Security Act? Now, first and foremost, the core criticism is, that there is no record or detentions, under the National Security Act. Now, I'll explain this further by stating that, see, the National Crime Records Bureau, the NCRB, what does it do? It collects and analyzes crime data in the country. Now, this crime data, how is it collected? See, technically, all of this data is collected on the basis of FIRs that are filed in every police station all over the country. Now, the NCRB, they collect all this data, they analyze it, and that's when they put out they put out a report on an annual basis. However, the National Crime Records Bureau does not include cases under the NSA in its data. And why? Because the NSA, as I said, you do not require an FIR to be registered. Hence, no figures are available for the exact number of detentions under the National Security Act. And also, another criticism that has been leveled against the National Security Act is that different state governments have invoked the stringent provisions of the NSA to detain citizens for questionable offences. For example, the recent Dr. Kafil Khan or the Manipur government or the Madhya Pradesh government. All of this, has kind of doubted the sense of the state government to invoke such stringent provisions of the National Security Act. And that is why a lot of the experts have argued that the government sometimes use the NSA as an extrajudicial power to control crime or to silence critics. So with that, we have also ended the key concepts that we had to learn from this editorial. Now, let us try to look at this issue from prelims and the mains perspective. Now, from prelims perspective, there have not been many questions related to NSA, but of course, we can always expect, because this has been in news from the UPSC, related to the key features or the articles of the Constitution, and similarly even the constitutional provisions of the acts that support the NSA. And from mains perspective, again, there has not been many questions. So this is a question from our end, on National Security Act. The question goes as follows. What is the National Security Act and why is it termed as a draconian law? Discuss in around 250 words. So, dear viewers, we would kindly request you to write your answers in the comments below so that we can discuss this question further. So, with this, we conclude today's session of editorial analysis. We hope we have done thorough justice to the article and you have understood this very well. Dear viewers, also please feel free to give us your valuable suggestions and comments so that we can strive to do better each and every day. So until next time, thank you, stay safe.